Hey guys, this is Nathan from lucidnetworker.com. This video here is an overview of the MD-100 Windows 10 exam. This will be the start of a full video series covering this exam. If you would, please leave a like on this video because that will help more people and also help the channel. Thank you for watching. Alright, so I have the exam objectives in front of me here. What you're going to notice is there isn't a whole lot to this exam, specifically the MD-100 Windows 10. If you have a decent amount of experience in managing desktops, this is probably going to be a piece of cake for you. But I'm going to create this series as if you know nothing, right? So let's just get started here. The first thing we have is it's saying that we need to learn to deploy Windows. That's 15 to 20% of the exam. And it breaks it down even further here. It goes into installing Windows, so we will cover that portion. They're going to go over clean installs, in-place upgrades, and actually customize installations using Windows 10 ADK and selecting the appropriate Windows 10 edition. A little bit further down the line there, you're going to see performing post-installation configuration. If you've ever worked in any sort of help desk or any role of that sort, then this is going to be super familiar to you. First, you're going to start with just configuring Microsoft Edge. Now, I personally am not a huge fan of Microsoft Edge, but of course, this is Microsoft's exam, so they will have you needing to know that. Next, you go to mobility settings, and then we have customizing the Windows desktops. There's a lot you can do with Windows desktops in Windows 10. And then we have troubleshooting activation issues. Of course, you run into it day to day if you work in a help desk environment, or you can run into it day to day. Hopefully you're not. But what you're going to see is that there are desktops that are just not activated properly, and you either have to reach out to Microsoft on that, or there's quite a few other things you're going to need to do, and we will dive into that on this exam. Alright, so next we have here configuring printers and external devices. I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever worked with printers, it's a load of fun. They love to have issues, so this is definitely something you're going to need to know for the role here that this is geared towards. So we'll dive deep into that. You got configure Windows 10 by using provisioning packages, something else we'll touch on, and then Microsoft Store settings. I'm not a big fan of the Microsoft Store. Again, Microsoft's exam, but we will learn it and we will conquer it. Configure Windows 10 built-in application settings, and configure and manage services. Alright, so we're moving on down here, and the next section we're at is manage device and data. This is going to be 25 to 30% of the exam, and it's going to teach you how to manage users, groups, and devices, which is something you're definitely going to have to know in a help desk role. And first, again, we're just going to start off here with the very top. It's managing local user groups, and then manage local users, manage groups, and devices in Active Directory domain services, which we'll touch on and go over, and I'll explain more of that obviously in the series. Next, we have manage user groups and devices in Azure Active Directory, Azure AD. So this is going to be something that you may not be familiar with, just coming from a you know a little bit about computers, but you're not quite an IT professional yet. Azure and Active Directory is something you jump into and you learn when you're actually in these roles. So we'll touch on that, and I will explain that in the best detail I can for someone new to this field. Okay, so the next one we have here is configuring devices by using local policies. So local policies, and again, we will dive into all of this, but just for an overview, local policies are something that is actually set on each individual computer that tells that computer a certain way to behave. For example, pop up a screensaver every 7 seconds. That's something you could set through a local policy. Moving on down, we have troubleshoot group policies on devices. Again, same idea, group policy. We'll get into all that. Configure Windows 10 by using group policy. Again, broken record here. Manage Windows security. All right, so we have a few assets of Windows security right at the desktop level. And the first one you have here is account control, Microsoft Defender Firewall, which is Windows built-in firewall, and implementing device encryption, which can be also be very useful if you need to make sure that device is very secure. It has a lot of sensitive data. And then after that, we have configure Microsoft Defender antivirus, and that's another thing we will look at and go over. In a real environment, you probably will be using a third-party antivirus, but we will still go over that, okay? And because you may need to know it, so definitely for the exam you will. All right, so the next section we have here is manage Windows security. The top part is configuring user access control. Of course, that's important, and that will be explained more. Configure Microsoft Defender Firewall. That's a built-in firewall for a Windows 10 desktop. Implement device encryption is next, and encryption is useful when you have very sensitive data on a computer and you need to make sure that this doesn't get in someone else's hands, and we'll go over that. Configure Microsoft Defender antivirus. Microsoft Defender antivirus is the built-in antivirus for Microsoft, and typically you're not going to be using this in a real-world environment. Usually you're going to be using some sort of third-party software, so you may not touch it a whole lot, but you will learn how to configure it here. And the next portion of this we have is manage devices security using core isolation, secure boot, and TPM. I'm not going to go over those here. This will be, again, a video on all these, and we will learn about what that all means. Okay, so next here we have configure storage and connectivity. That's going to be 15 to 20% of this exam. At the top here we have configure networking. It says configure client IPs, configure mobile networking, and troubleshoot networking. We'll go over all that. I'll explain, if you don't know already, what IP settings are, and then we go right down to configure data access and protection. So we have configure NTFS permissions. It sounds complicated. It's really not. I mean, it can get very complicated, but in this is going to be a very simple overview of NTFS, and you will know it. So don't be scared by the acronyms there. Configure shared permissions, configure local storage, manage and optimize storage, and configure file and folder permissions. And then lastly here we have configure OneDrive for business. If you're not familiar with OneDrive, this is Microsoft's version of a cloud storage solution, and we will go over that as well. Okay, so we have maintain Windows up next here, and that's going to be 30 to 35% of the exam. Now for this, what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to, of course, perform file recovery, which is something very important. If you're ever to lose files, you're going to need to know how to have that there in the first place where you can actually restore those files. Again, this is another thing where a lot of times you're going to have a system in place at these companies where there's some sort of third-party backup file recovery type deal. So we'll go over that. Next is recover Windows 10. So recover if it has any sort of issues in the actual operating system itself. So we'll go over that. Troubleshoot startup and boot process. Of course, that's important. You need your computer to boot, so we'll go over that. Create and manage system restore points. I cannot stress this enough. You need to do this. Like, this is ideal. That's why they have it here in the exam objectives. So make sure you're doing this, and we will learn how to do it, and you will be better for it. So, all right, so the next section we have here is manage updates. So we have troubleshooting updates, select and configure the appropriate service channel for feature updates, configure Windows update options, plan for types of Windows updates, including feature updates, quality updates, servicing stack updates, driver updates, and Microsoft product updates. All super important, a lot of updates, and you're going to need to do this because you have to make sure that your computers are in tip-top shape when it comes to patches and drivers. You're going to find all sorts of issues if that's not something you're doing. And then again, so the last one here is configuring updates by using Windows Updates for Business, and we'll go over that portion and the for business portion, which is good. We have monitor and manage Windows. So you need to configure and analyze event logs. Again, something that you have to do, you have to know how to do. Manage performance, managing the performance of these actual systems. And then next we have manage Windows 10 environment. You have to be able to know how to manage, monitor Windows. This is a thing when a service ticket may come in, and you're just going to have to know how to knock out issues and where to look, and this is what you're going to use. This is where you're going to look for resolving issues. You're going to have to use the managing performance tools that are available in Windows, and also analyze event logs. It's very important as well. Everything's important, at this point. But seriously, you really need to know how to manage these event logs and just view them and know what you're looking for so you can resolve the issues. Configure local registry is the next one down here. We'll go over all about configuring the local registry. You got to be careful with configuring the local registry. It can change everything for a computer, and so a lot of times you're going to need to export that before you touch a thing. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad day. Schedule tasks, pretty straightforward. You can schedule different tasks on the computer, and we'll go over all that. We are on the last section here, and you're going to configure remote connectivity. You're going to manage Windows 10 remotely by using Windows Admin Center. Configure remote assistance tools, manage Windows remotely by using Windows Remote Management. You need to know that. Configure remote desktop access. Super important on a user day-to-day basis. A lot of users need to have remote desktop access set up. So that's it. You see the exam MD-101, managing modern desktops down there. We are not going to be going over that in this series. I'm going to create another series on that, so stay tuned. If this video helps you, please leave a like so that way we can get that to more people that need the free help. So here we go.